Well, good evening, everybody. We're here for Fire Safety Essentials for the beautiful area of Port Campbell tonight. My name's Kerry Deacon, and hosting with me is Garth Wesson.
G'day.
We also are lucky enough to have the local Brigade Captain with us, Phil Eunice. So I will refer to Phil a couple of times throughout the presentation this evening. Before we go any further, I'll do an acknowledgement of country. I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands on which we are gathered and pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. Now, tonight's session is a webinar. And that means you can't turn on your video or audio. That really is a function that's available to Garth and myself. You will be able to interact by answering the polls, which are little questionnaires when we put them up on the screen, or by asking questions through the chat function. So I should let you know also that we are recording this session. And as a reminder, the audience can't appear on the recording. The recording will just be of the presentation and myself, Garth and Phil when we speak. I will be showing you animations, a short video and some photographs throughout the session. So the PowerPoint slides that we have really are background information only. We want you to interact throughout the session. So we'll have a little practice at using the chat function. To use the chat function, you hover your mouse, or if you have such a different device such as a mobile screen, touch the screen and see a speech box appear. This is where you can chat to myself and Garth. We'll be answering any questions that you have throughout the session using that function. We may refer to it too. This might look a bit different if you're using a phone or other mobile device, but the chat function will still be available to you. We would like people to tell us where they're joining us from, because I've assumed that everyone is here from Port Campbell, but of course you could be from towns around that area. The other day we had someone from Warrnambool for a session that was at quite a different place. So,
yes.
We've
got a couple here coming in from Port Campbell itself, and also some from out in Coorimundle. Beautiful wetlands. I think everyone's wetlands out there anyway. It's all really lush area out there. Some very, very nice, productive farmland.
Thanks, Garth. So if our audience needs help at all during the presentation, the chat function can help to speak to us. And they will need to choose panelist if that isn't already there. That comes to the hosts. Now we have a little practice with our polls as well, those little questionnaires I mentioned. The first one Garth will put up, and it has 4 questions. 4 questions, so you may need to scroll down to see all the questions available. We can't see who has answered, who has given what answer to which question. We can't see that. We can only see percentage ratings as people put in their responses, and I will be sharing the responses at the end. We have the first question: how long have you lived in the area? Have you been to a CFA meeting before? How did you find out about this session? And these are just single choice, so one possibility available to you. And if you could rate your knowledge around fire, just at the start of this session. All right, another 10 seconds on that one. And I will share. Okay, that takes us to our 10. I'll end the poll and I'll share the results so that everyone can see. how long they've lived in the area. We have a lot of people who've been in the area for over 10 years, Garth.
Wow.
Yes, and people who've been to a CFA meeting before. No, they haven't. So if this is a first, I hope it's a rewarding experience.
Fantastic.
And how did you find out about the session and other means rather than social media, newspaper advertisement or whatever? So we do try and reach out to people through several means so that as many people as possible have the chance of joining. And people are telling us their knowledge around fire is generally medium. So we'll see how that goes from across the next 55 minutes or so. I'm going to stop sharing that little poll now. There are a couple more polls during the session. Okay. This is a reminder that the session is not meant for children or young people. That's because some of the things that we talk about are quite serious, and we do show a few serious photographs as well. We recommend that you set your children up with another activity to keep them entertained or occupied. I know for over 50 minutes that is a bit of a challenge. However, if you need to attend to your children, you can, and then rejoin us when you're ready. We suggest that you turn off the camera or the screen so that that event doesn't happen.
I'll just turn it away and yeah.
Okay. We have the learning outcomes for today's session. So what we're going to cover is material that helps you to understand the local fire risks for your area there in Port Campbell, what to expect from a fire, the nature of fire, how do you know if there is a fire in the area, planning and decision making for how to keep yourself safe from a fire threat, and surviving if the plan fails or if you get caught out. So you have a wonderful plan, but if the plan doesn't work, what on earth do you do? So we follow this sequence. So understanding the local fire risks, Charles.
Right, so yeah, look, Victoria obviously is one of the most bushfire prone parts of the world. We sort of experienced that a couple of years ago, and over many years, you know, there's been major fires. Obviously, the state is divided up into different sections, so you can get different information from the Weather Bureau and from the CFA as to whether they're declaring total fire bans or how bad a fire would be in a particular area, and that's obviously we're down in the southwest in beautiful Port Campbell, so that would be down around on the coast there, pretty much smack bang in the middle of the southwest area. We also just like to cover a little bit about the seasonal outlook for this coming spring. At the moment, they haven't sort of talked too much about what summer's looking like. But at this stage, the seasonal outlook for spring is quite a wet spring, which means there's going to be a lot of growth, a lot of grass growth in particular. And that, of course, can dry out quite quickly when we go into summer. And that means there'll be a lot of fuel for grass fires in particular coming into this summer season. So that can be a particular risk for, I would call the back of Port Campbell, so the farming land and the hinterlands of the coast there. Obviously the coastal scrub areas are quite volatile at all times, and due to their high oil content, and they can be quite an erratic and dangerous fire if the fire gets going in there. So local vegetation, well, I actually just sort of almost just covered that. So yeah, you've got your coastal scrubland, sort of turning into the smaller, the low forest, and then into the more solid forest, I suppose you'd call it, as you're heading back towards timber burn, and then we've got a lot of farmland once you sort of leave the coastal edge of the parkland along the coastal edge of the national park. So you really quite a big mix of vegetation, which can mean you've got not only you've got very intense fires in forest and bushland, but also very fast moving fires in grassland and farmland. So you can have a very volatile mix in that. So which leads us on to local risks. Number of things in local risk. Obviously, there's a lovely picture of Port Campbell in the top right corner there, with the beautiful bay. But you can see there quite clearly. Well, and we know too, if we from looking that way, if we turn to our right and head along the Great Ocean Road, we just winding along the coastline and then end up heading into the Otways and end up at Laders Hill. Not a very safe path that way.
In fact, we have a poll, Gus.
Do we? I've missed the poll.
Yes, we do. Well, not yet. So perhaps as these people have been living in the area for quite some time, they could tell us some things. We have a poll, and the question is, what are some things that could make your local area a high-risk area? And this one's one question, and it's multiple choice. So if you let us know what you think presents a risk regarding fire in your area. A few answers coming in there, Garth. And another 10 seconds for people to finish reading through and assigning their responses. And give it another 5 seconds. I think most people have responded. And I'll end the poll now and share the results so that you can see what I see. Okay, so in Port Campbell and surrounds, a high fuel load, and certainly after a wettish spring, things will grow. So we're expecting a higher fuel load. High tourist area in the summer, and that's one of the facts of living in your lovely area. Not much interest in potential speed of grass fires. However, grass fires sparked by embers, narrow winding roads and tree limbs hanging over the roads have all got a healthy response here as well. So quite a few local risks from the vegetation in the area. We will have a look then at the brigade capacity. What we're finding is that people assume that if there is a fire threat, that the brigade will turn up to their street and let people know. And I'm sure that the fire brigade would really want to do that. However, on the slide that's showing, we can see that the population is just under the 500 mark. In 2016, it was 478, but I expect that's grown a little bit from the tourists that are attracted to the area, and dwellings 323. Now, the brigade has one tanker, I'll put in one truck there, and it also has one ultralight. So the chances of the brigade turning up to your street are pretty slim, given that if there is a fire threat, the tanker and the ultralight will be called into service to attend to the fire front. Phil, do you have any comments on that?
Other than that, is absolutely correct. Yes, assets are important. One of the ways of protecting those assets initially is to attack the fire front and hopefully stop it.
Absolutely. So,
was there anything else, Phil, that you would like to say about the local risk also?
Look, the most locations suffer from the same risks: low humidity, high temperature, high fuel loads.
Yeah.
It's fairly standard stuff. When the humidity drops and the temperature rises, fire risk increases.
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, you've taken us very nicely over to our next topic, which is what to expect from a fire. We should know that Victoria, of course, has a lot of fires. In fact, we're one of the most fire-prone areas in the world. We are challenging California for that particular prestige. And 2 summers ago, we saw huge fires in multiple parts of the state. We had pictures of fires over the TV, social media, radio commentary. We see incredible images, but unless you've actually had the experience, it's hard to imagine what it would be like to be threatened by fire. Okay, so in a fire situation, there are a number of threats to the house and property. Direct flame impact, as Phil mentioned, dry fuel on and around your property allows a running fire to burn right up to the house. So if you ensure that you have fire breaks or means to break the continuity of the fuel, such as driveways, broader veggie patches, gravel paths, it may be of some assistance. Also, ember attack, nearby or even distant, depending on the winds. Burning bushes, trees send embers onto your property and the house, and possibly start numerous small fires in the dry fuel around the house. Ember attack is the biggest cause of property loss during a fire. We spoke earlier about the fuel type around Port Campbell. So fire spreading through ember attack is very relevant to people in the area. What we're going to do now is play a couple of animations. Even though they are animations, they take us pretty close to the situation. If you think that you might find this distressing, please move away from the screen. The first animation is about ember attack, how it works, what it's like to experience it, and it is a 3-minute animation. Thank you, Garth.
I don't think we're getting sound there. Sorry, that's my fault. I will just, I haven't pushed the right buttons when I started sharing here. So just let me fix that up. Let's try that again. Sound still.
No, I am not getting it. We've had some aspects of the presentation automated, and it certainly was working in our practice run this afternoon.
Embers are the most common way that houses catch fire. Embers are burning leaves, twigs and pieces of bark. They help the bushfire spread by starting spot fires ahead of the main fire front. Short-distance ember attacks happen when leaves and small pieces of bark are blown from burning trees. The intense shower of sparks that forms fills the air with hot, burning embers, which will land on nearby vegetation and properties. The hot embers can easily land and get into your clothes and burn your skin, eyes, and airways. Small fires will start all around you and quickly become uncontrollable. The resulting chaos creates confusion as the fire seems to come from many directions, meaning it will be difficult to make good decisions about your safety. The experience will be physically exhausting and emotionally traumatic. Long-distance ember attack is caused by large bushfires that generate intense heat. As the hot air rises, it forms a column of smoke that sucks in air like a vacuum, increasing the intensity of the fire. The updraft in the column lifts embers, like large pieces of burning ribbon bark, hundreds of metres into the air, where strong winds can carry them many kilometres beyond the fire front. On Black Saturday, embers travelled more than 30 kilometres ahead of the main fire. When these embers land, they often start fires where leaves naturally accumulate, like in gutters, doorways and garden beds. So while you might think you're safe when a bushfire is far away, embers can fall from the sky and land around your home long before you even know there's a fire. But remember, your home isn't the only thing under threat during an ember attack. By the time you realise the danger, it might be too late as escape routes become jammed. Embers can also start fires on roads and block them completely, making late evacuation dangerous or impossible. That's why leaving early, before a fire starts, is always your safest option.
We hope that has helped explain more about the nature of fire and how fire spreads. And I can only repeat, the CFA promotes the idea of leaving early. That could be before breakfast time. It could be, in fact, the night before. And we'll have a discussion about that later on. The idea being that you won't be going to experience fire or ember attack if you're not in the area. We have a second animation, which I hope behaves itself a little better than that one did. Radiant heat. So even small, low fuel, such as coastal growth or grass fires, can produce enough radiant heat to kill or injure people. It's not actually flames that cause death during a fire. People often experience the negative effects of radiant heat long before flames reach them. And again, if you think you might find this distressing, please move away from the screen. The animation plays for 2.5 minutes. So, Garth, good luck.
Victoria is one of the most bushfire-prone parts of the world. Every summer, bushfires threaten properties and lives. But did you know it's not the flames that kill most bushfire victims? No, it's the radiant heat. Most victims die from the effects of radiant heat long before they're reached by the flames. Radiant heat is what you feel when you sit next to a campfire. If a campfire heats up to 2 kilowatts per square metre, you'll feel that it's too hot and will want to move back from the fire. If you don't, this amount of radiant heat is enough to cause burns and blisters in as little as 40 seconds. At 12 kilowatts, it can cause some materials like dry timber to ignite. A bushfire can reach 100 kilowatts, and the effects can be truly catastrophic. For humans, radiant heat can cause burns from 100 metres away and cause a dangerous increase in body temperature. Radiant heat can cause the rapid onset of heat stroke. Heat stroke damages your brain, meaning you won't be able to concentrate to make good decisions as the fire arrives. Other impacts include severe damage of internal organs and death. There are some things you can do if you're caught in a fire. Cover your skin with long-sleeved natural fibre clothing, like wool. It's also useful to know that radiant heat only travels in straight lines and can't bend around corners. So, sheltering behind or inside solid structures may help protect you. But be aware, radiant heat will travel straight through glass. The best defence against radiant heat is a simple one. If you're not anywhere near a bushfire, its radiant heat can't hurt you. Leaving early is always your safest option.
We hope that has helped explain why radiant heat is so dangerous. It significantly affects your ability to think clearly and to make good decisions. And again, this is why we promote the idea that leaving early is the safest option. It's so that you're nowhere near the radiant heat. After major fires, it's common for the CFA to interview people about their experience, to find out what happened and to hear their stories and find out what they would do in the future. On the screen, you can see some quotes from interviews. There's one there as close as Cobden. We're about to share a very short video compilation of some of the interview excerpts for you. This video takes less than a minute. If again you think that this will cause an emotional response, please leave the screen now. This should take just under a minute.
10 years ago, when all the dams were full and the tanks were full and there was plenty of water, I probably would have stayed and I would have died.
Nothing went the way we might have anticipated.
Whatever preparations you put into place, you only need something small to go wrong.
You know, in future, I don't think we'd want to put the kids through that sort of trauma, I guess. Yeah, wouldn't put the kids through that again.
If it was my choice, I wouldn't stay again. If we had another day like that, if I had the opportunity to get out, I would go before the fire even got here.
So what does this mean for you? Fire will be a stressful and traumatic situation that you need to plan and be prepared for. Exit roads may be blocked. Ember attack causes fire to spread quickly. Radiant heat is the biggest killer, and decision-making may be impacted. Leaving early before a fire starts is always the safest option. Now we'll move to...
We've got a poll here, haven't
we should have a poll.
we? Yeah. There you go.
Okay, this one's multiple choice. Thanks, Garth. What do you think would impact your ability to make good decisions? If you could choose more than one thing, I can't see, or Garth and I can't see who has answered in any particular way. And again, I will share the responses once we're thinking that people are done. All right, and another 10 seconds on that one. I'll end the poll now and share the results so that you can see what we can see. Impacts on abilities to make good decisions, stress in the fire threat situation, and a rapidly changing situation, which from the earliest video talking about fire, smoke, changing winds, is a very realistic expectation. We also have suggested not enough time, communication breakdowns, things not going to plan, all the things that happen in chaotic situations. And I'll finish that. And let's consider, how do we know if there is a fire? Okay. Well, we don't have a crystal ball, but what we do have is a system to advise people of fire danger ratings. And I'm sure that you would have seen this particular graphic in the newspapers, on television, and of course it's referred to on radio as well. A fire danger rating system. Now, I'm wondering if you could tell me what it means. We all know what it looks like, and we know that there's usually an arrow that points to one of these parts of our semicircle, but what does it actually mean? And we have a poll. 3 questions, so you, it would be good if you could scroll down to see the 3rd question there. What does the fire danger rating mean? Is it an indicator of how likely it is a fire will start, or of how bad a fire would be if one did start? Does anyone know how many code red days have happened in the region in the last 5 years? And I need to scroll down too. Does anyone know how many severe or extreme days have happened in this region, Port Campbell, southwest, in the last 5 years? We'll give that another 10 seconds.
And that is actually a slightly trick question because it's actually not correctly worded. It's supposed to be just extreme, but for some reason the person who loaded these polls forgot to delete the severe off there, but that's okay.
It wasn't me. It wasn't me. Okay, so I shall end the poll and share the results. Our audience does have knowledge about these things, Garth. What does the fire danger rating mean? It's an indicator of how bad a fire would be if one were to start.
I'm going to put that next slide up.
Okay. Can you see it, or do we still have our poll up?
The poll should be there as well still.
Yeah. Does anyone know how many code red days have happened in the region in the last 5 years?
Yes. I think 2 is probably a pretty good thing. We generally have 1 or 2 each year. I don't think we had any last year. On a bad year, we probably have 2 in 1 year. In Southwest, we're fairly lucky. Mallee may well have, 5 or 6 extreme days in a bad year. How many code red days? We have had no code red days since 2009. That is surprising, I know, but we don't get a lot of code red days. We had some in the north of the state last year, but we have had very few, even right across the whole state. And in Southwest, we have had none since Black Saturday, and the day after Black Saturday were both code red days in 2009.
So time moves quickly, and the fire danger rating system is specific to the region. So you may have heard a lot about code red, but for Southwest, none in the last 5 years. And the number of, however you wanted this question worded, the last one, the severe extreme days.
Yes, so extreme, in the last 5 years, we've probably had around about the 6 mark in the last 5 years. I don't actually have an exact number either, unfortunately, but it's more an opportunity to have a discussion, really, rather than trying to get the exact answer. There's not a lot of them, but yeah, as I said, generally 1 or 2 per year on an average year. Last year, because it was quite a mild year, we didn't have any extreme days last year at all through the summer. And who knows, this year we could have code red days this summer. We really don't know at this point in time. It's all a matter of being prepared for what turns up.
So we have our myth-busting slide. Fire danger ratings do tell you how bad a fire would be should one start. And right, in addition to the fire danger rating system, we also have our...
You've talked that you wanted to go on?
I do. I've got a technical problem here.
Yes, we'll come on.
Okay. So on a severe day, we expect hot, dry and possibly windy conditions. If a fire starts and takes hold on a severe day, it may be uncontrollable. Extreme, naturally, things are a little more grim. Expect extremely hot, dry and windy conditions on a day designated extreme fire danger. If a fire starts and takes hold, it will be uncontrollable, unpredictable and fast moving. Spot fires will start, they'll move quickly and they'll come from many directions. And code red, these are the worst conditions for bush or grass fire, including coastal scrub. Homes are not designed or constructed to withstand fires of these conditions. The safest place to be is away from high risk bushfire areas. And as we've seen, we don't get many of this range most summers. So it's not as if there would be many days where people would need to leave and leave early. Right. This slide is a representation of the many sources of information that come to us at any moment. Even if we don't use all of them, there's so much information coming through various sources available to us that can be hard to discern what's important to us right here and now. Not everything we hear or read is accurate despite good intentions. How do you use this information to make decisions? If you are going to make decisions about your safety, double check that your information is correct. We know that local sources and local people can be very good sources of information. However, when a danger day is happening, probably best to listen to the accurate sources of information. How much more important is it if we're talking about making decisions that could make or break the safety of you and your family? Are you going to trust Facebook or are you going to go to more formal sources of information? Naturally, we suggest the more formal would be of benefit, and we have the slide that shows us sources of information to check whether you've heard or seen is correct and correct for your area. We highly recommend the Vic Emergency app down there in the left-hand corner. This is an app you can have on your phone. It gives you the fire danger ratings, not only for the current day, but for 3 days in advance. So you can have plenty of warning that one of the more severe range is coming up. Garth, do you have any comments?
No, I'll just say that if you're not a smartphone user, then certainly the local news, local radio, television is very good, particularly local radio, the ABC local radio or the local commercial radio is also an emergency services broadcaster. So if an event were to happen, then that radio would be very good. And it's always worth, as a backup, having a battery operated radio in case phone towers go down, phones go flat, phones break, fall in the toilet, you know, things happen. So that's a very good backup. There's also the Vic Emergency is also available on your tablet or computer as a web page. And you can also call them. It's a hotline if you're not a tech-savvy person. Just they're 1-800-226-226, and they will give you information. And then there's the National Relay Service for hearing impaired people, or the interpreter service for people who speak languages other than English, of course, also.
Thank you. These sources are great if to advise that an incident has started. And also the fire danger rating, as I mentioned, up to 3 or 4 days in advance. Further to the fire danger rating system, we have the advice and warning system. Now, the yellow advice means that an incident is occurring or has occurred in the area. And the advice is to access information, monitor the conditions. They can also be used as notification that an activity is scaling down, is subsiding, where one has happened. Watch and act, the orange one, signifies that an emergency is developing nearby and that you would need to take action now to protect yourself and others. An emergency warning means that your area is in imminent danger and you need to take action immediately. You will be impacted. Now, you will notice that on the slide, there's a banner at the bottom saying, do not wait for a warning, because while the services from the previous slide gave us information sources about incidents that have happened or are starting, the warning notices can be a little late in coming about for our benefit, and we'll have a little scenario in a moment. We have a couple more emergency signals. There's an evacuation, prepare to evacuate and evacuate now. An evacuation is recommended or procedures are in place to evacuate. In fact, by the time this sign comes up, you really ought to have evacuated ahead of it. And we'll explain that. Community information is a separate thing. It means a newsletter containing updates for communities affected by an emergency that those newsletters have issued or a new one has issued. It can also be used as a notification that an incident has occurred, but there's no threat to community. And you might have seen these where there are burn-offs in the cooler seasons ahead of the summer fire season. Again, don't wait for a warning, enact your plan.
So
we have a little scenario now about why we don't advise people to wait for the warnings. Garth.
So yes, this is a possible scenario we're just going to talk about here. It's a little thing you could say, all right, let's imagine if a fire were to start somewhere out the back of Port Campbell, not too far away, on a hot and windy day. Our fire has started, and surprise, surprise, no one has called 000 yet because it's just started. But then 5 minutes later, somebody notices it and they call 000. Phil's pager goes off. He jumps in his ute and heads down to the fire station. He's getting there, jumping on the truck, getting the crew together. That maybe 10 minutes he's heading out there. He can see there's smoke coming. He calls on the radio and says, you know, this is looking pretty bad. It's blowing straight towards Port Campbell. So he asks for an advice message to be put out. This has taken about a quarter of an hour now since the fire started. If you have a look where that little house is, it's going to be impacted in about 18 minutes. And that is, it's going to have the fire come past it in about 18 minutes from when the fire started. It's only an advice message now at 15 minutes. By 20 minutes, that fire has passed that house and it's already impacted on that house to whatever effect it's going to. Now, at 20 minutes, Phil's updated it to an emergency warning, and he's managed to get through to the relevant people on the radio. They've contacted the other people in the Melbourne head office because there's no one on duty in Colac, and they've put it up as an emergency warning. But the people in this house, maybe it was you, they've already been impacted before the emergency warning came out. This is why you must never wait for a warning. You can see here 30 minutes, it's already gone past, it's getting bigger. Phil's doing his best. They've got more tankers coming down from Timboon and Scotts Creek, and everyone's chipping in. They've got Lower Hawkesbury's on their way over, but they've got a windy old drive to get down there. So that's why you may well be ahead of the warnings, and don't wait for a warning. Next bit, a very good reason why, what we can do. Back to Kerry.
Thanks, Garth. Finally, of course, your senses are given to you so that you can use them in emergency situations. So on days that rate quite highly, you can use your senses to detect whether smoke has started and perhaps even what direction it has come from. And in fact, even on days that haven't rated that highly, there's been significant fires generally on the Great Ocean Road, haven't there, Garth? Where they weren't severe or code red days.
The Wye River was very high fire danger rating. Wye River Christmas Day, we lost 153 houses, I think it was. Maybe it was 158, but lots anyway. Significant property damage on a very high fire danger day. So.
The point here is to advise people to not just shut curtains and turn on the air conditioner. It's important to stay in touch with the information sources and also the environment around them. What direction is the wind coming from? Things like that. And also a repeat reminder, don't wait for a warning. Once things start, you know how they're going to take off. Okay, so up till now, we've talked about risks in the local area, the fire experience, ways to stay informed and know if there possibly is going to be a fire. Now we're going to run through a hypothetical situation so we can see this, how this plays out in a more realistic situation. So this is a hypothetical. It's 8 o'clock on a Wednesday morning in summertime fire season. You look outside and you can see that it is already hot and windy. The morning news is reporting that today is a day of extreme fire danger rating. You jump in the car to shoot off to work or to go into town, and you can see little branches falling from the trees and feel the heat coming through the glass windows. Further, just past the morning, it's about lunchtime, you overhear people talking about a fire that has started just a short way away from Port Campbell. You jump on the Vic Emergency app to find out whereabouts, and you see that it has started a short distance from your house. You jump in the car, start heading home to make sure everything's okay. And as you get closer to your home, you see the road is blocked by police. You wind down your window and the police advise that it is not safe for anyone to go in the area as the fire is still burning and there are a couple of trees down on the road. You will have to find somewhere else to go until the road is reopened. Now, I'm going to ask you a few questions by way of a poll. There should be 3 questions in this poll. Where would you be on your average Wednesday in summer? You have a choice of answering this, and we can't see who has answered what, so you're not giving anything private away here. Thinking about last summer, would you have been prepared to spend a few nights away from home at very short notice? And last summer, did you have an emergency kit packed with some survival aspects such as change of clothes, important documents, medicine, things like that? And we'll give that another 5 seconds. I'll end the poll now and share the results. Right, so most people would have been at work on an average Wednesday in summertime, which means they're not in their homes. They can't pop out and see what's happened to the pets or pick up those important documents just like that. I think last summer, would you have been prepared to spend some time away from home? No, so perhaps for our audience, that's something to consider. And an emergency kit actually relates to that second question. So again, there's the start of a plan starting to form. Stop sharing. And we shall move on. I have another scenario that's true. We are. Thanks. Right, moving on from those polls isn't always so easy. All right, having had a little think about planning, let's have a look at hypothetical situation as it moves on. This is the same day, except this time when you jump on the Vic Emergency app, you see that the fire is still a while away. The little yellow shaded area on your phone doesn't quite reach your house. You think to yourself, I've got enough time to run home and grab some important stuff. So you drive home. As you get out of the car in your driveway, you can smell smoke. It is still really windy and really hot. You check the app again and you see the little yellow triangle on your screen. Still has an advice message. You should have enough time. You frantically move about the house, grabbing your important things, those extra documents, some cat food, and start running them out to the car. And every now and then you check on your phone to see if you're being told to evacuate. But that hasn't happened yet. So you still have time, don't you? You're running through a list in your head. You've got the pets, you've got your photos, birth certificate, passport. Oh, crumbs, this is taking a lot longer than you thought it would. Then you notice little patches of smoke coming up from various areas in the garden. And that pile of leaves that you've been meaning to deal with, that's also started to smoke. And in fact, there are embers dropping, falling near your home. You feel that surge of adrenaline pump through your body. You know you're out of time. What are you going to do? What can you do now? Where are you going to go? Can you still drive out of your driveway? What's happening on that road? Is there somewhere safe that you can go? Should you stay at home at this point? Do you grab the garden hose, try and put out what are now little fires? Now that's as far as we'll go with that particular scenario, but these are all decisions people need to make, and that's without taking into consideration other people, family members. What if you have kids? Would they be at school or with you? Do you have someone who depends on you, like a neighbour? Do you have horses? Have they been moved to a different area? What if a tree comes down in the wind and it's now blocking the road? This probably feels like a lot to take in right now. I'm probably bombarding you with questions and you may not have answers for them. And that's without the stress of there actually being a fire. This is a webinar. So what is one thing that you could have done differently to avoid being in the situation? If you have any ideas, we'd like to see them in the chat, because that's something that we can share with the others. One thing to avoid being caught. Well, if people are being a bit shy, do you have any suggestions, Garth?
Oh, let me think. We could have just not gone home. Just said, oh, look, no, it's too dangerous. I'm not even going to try going home. See the smoke. I'm going to drive the other way. Maybe I could have had a plan which would have had me going, having my documents, or having a kit already in the car with some emergency things in the car through summer.
And in fact, our next slide.
We've got another one here, electronic copy of important documents. That's a fantastic thing to do. Yes, absolutely. A lot of stuff can be stored on the cloud now, wherever that cloud is. I haven't seen it, but I'm sure it's there somewhere. But certainly, yeah, having some things in the car for a bad day is great, so that if you do get caught out, you're a little bit more prepared, and having a bit of a plan with your fellow members of your household, so everyone knows what's going to happen if this sort of thing happens, if this does crop up.
Yes. The CFA, of course, promotes the idea that people do have a plan, that it's personalised, that it lists all of the responsibilities, such as helping out the neighbour, putting the cat in its cage, all those things. We also have COVID-19 as a current global pandemic, and that may have an impact on plans. For example, if people have decided to go a certain place, that place, such as a cinema or whatever, may not be open due to COVID-19 restrictions. So it's always worth checking the plans to see if they will still work in given situations. So we know how important having a plan is. It helps people to think their way through, to have things ready ahead of time, and to limit the possibility of panicked decisions. So hopefully the plans, part A, B and C, work. However, you know, given that we're dealing with a natural force, things can change. So we're going to consider very briefly survival options if your plans fail. We are getting close to the end. This section might be quite confronting for some. There are about 3 slides to come up. The first thing that we recommend is that people wear the right gear for the day. However, and in the situation, if you haven't been able to leave, certainly covering your skin with natural fibres, cotton, linen, wool, wearing solid shoes, and this is to prevent the radiant heat being so severe on the skin. We don't recommend going onto roofs in thongs and shorts. We don't recommend being in thongs and shorts anywhere in a fire risk area. This is to protect yourself from heat, things flying around, and heat stroke, of course. You can protect yourself from radiant heat to some degree by hiding behind solid objects, rocks, water tank, behind or inside a house. It is likely that these will still catch on fire, but it does afford you some time to be able to protect yourself and move from one place to another once the risk is a little lower. It's important to go to a place with less fuel, to go to an open space with fewer trees, short grass, or move to a large water source like a river or a large dam. If you can't drive out and your property is not safe, you could go to an open paddock or a school oval. And indeed, Port Campbell does have a bushfire place of last resort, don't they, guys?
Indeed, there's a beautiful photograph in the bottom left corner there. Your beautiful foreshore reserve between the creek and the shops. That section of grassland there, which I'm sure you all know very well is your bushfire place of last resort in Port Campbell. Of course, the name says it all. It is a place of last resort. It's not to be your plan A or your plan B or your plan C. It is your plan for when all your plan fails and you've got nowhere else to go. It will afford you some protection because of its distance from the vegetation, and so therefore distance from radiant heat. That's the value of the space.
Now, our next slide warns us that the following slide may be distressing for some people. It shows images of fires in the landscape. We have a couple more warnings. Importantly, don't drive through fire. This relates to what we covered early in the session. Heavy smoke makes it impossible to see, and it is disorientating. It could hit, the vehicle could hit a tree or have an accident or block the road somehow, which of course would prevent the emergency services, Phil and crew, moving through so that they can get to the fire front or to assist people who are in even more dire need. Sheltering in a car from fire is possible, but it's an incredibly risky thing to do. It certainly shouldn't be part of a plan by any means. Cars are designed to transport you from A to B, not to protect you from a fire, but there is a method, and the CFA has publications to help people with things like preparing properties, suggestions of places to shelter in an emergency. At the end of this session, you should be taken through to a CFA page where these publications are available. So we're wrapping up now. We do have an exit poll, which relates to the first poll that you filled out. We do, it will come up.
Yeah.
Thank you, Garth. 2 questions on this one. Did this meeting give you a better understanding of bushfire risk in your local area? And would you recommend this program to family, friends or neighbours that live in a fire-prone area? Again, we can't see who has assigned which answers. We only see percentage ratings, which in this case have been quite positive, Garth. We have 100% for our better understanding and our recommendations. So that's terrific. Glad it was of some help. I'm going to close the poll now and share the results just so that you can see what I'm seeing. And I will close the poll. We have a slide that shows the contacts for your local district. This is your headquarters in Colac, and a phone number there. If you have any thoughts or comments that you'd like to pass on to the CFA about this presentation, the contacts are given there. And of course, if you find that your emotions have been affected by the information that we've covered in the session, there is support available. So we have Beyond Blue, Lifeline, and of course you will have people who are supportive to you, family, friends, neighbours. If you have any further comments, of course, when you see Phil walking down the street, you can tap him on the shoulder and have a chat about fire safety and various aspects of how the brigade might be able to assist. Phil, do you have any further comments? I'm assuming Phil's still there.
Yeah, Phil's there.
I'm still there. Well, definitely the first thing I'll be doing is referring them to this webinar. It's been excellent.
Fantastic. Yeah. Now, there's this last slide here. There is a QR code there or a web page, that engage.cfa.vic.gov.au, fire safety programs, or you can take a photograph of that QR code and use that to take you to that website. If anyone wants to take a photograph of this page, just leave it up for a little bit longer. or even just a photograph of it, so they've got that the web address there. That will take you, because there should be a link in here, but we don't have the link working at the moment. So please use the QR code, or use that in blue there, engage.cfa.vic.gov.au/fire safety programs. And that will take you to a place where you can download a whole lot of different resources, brochures, booklets. You can also ask to do a further program if you're interested, which is called a fire planning workshop. And also, if you want to contact the local district, it gives you all those details as well. And there's a little survey there, which another little survey. We love to survey.
Like the information, don't we?
Yeah, we're quite happy to. We'd love to have you to go in there and have a look at that site.
One of our participants suggested an electronic copy of important documents, and that's worth commenting on as well, in that it's a terrific idea, because that means that that's part of the preparation already done.
I'm going to stop sharing now. And I will say thank you very much to everyone who's come along tonight. And we will stay around for a couple more minutes. If anyone wants to pop any questions in the chat, we're more than happy to keep responding to anything.
And thanks very much, Phil, for your involvement. It's so wonderful to have the captain of the brigade involved in the session.
No worries. No, it was very interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Phil.
I just wasn't quite clear on